year or two, staffing, well, obviously has been a concern. The idea of a better international pipeline to solve staffing has come to the forefront. And we found a company by the name of Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, who is joining us here today to talk about the work that they're doing in this space that can help with some of those workforce problems. So I'm happy to introduce Ron Hoppy, their CEO, Angela Wolterman, who is their regional account manager for the Midwest, including the Minnesota area. And they're going to take us through a slide deck here today. And before they do, just a few housekeeping notes. After the session today, I'll be sending out a nice little thank you note for registering. You'll get the slide deck. You'll get the presenter contact information if you'd like to follow up with any of the presenters or topics that you hear today. Happy to connect you there. And then at the end, we will do questions and answers. So feel free to use the chat or the Q&A button on the screen. We'll be happy to get to those at the end of today's session once Ron concludes going through all of those. So really happy to have such a great audience here today. And Ron, I will turn it over to you to run through the materials.
Drew, thank you so much for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity of being part of this presentation this afternoon. Welcome to everyone that is joining. On behalf of Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, I just want to say it's really a privilege for us to be a new member of the Minnesota Hospital Association Endorsed Partner Program. We look forward to actively participating and contributing to association activities well beyond our webinar presentation this afternoon. So as Drew introduced my colleague Angela, she's going to help keep me on track today by advancing the slides. So let's dive right in. Next slide, please. So in our webinar presentation today, we're going to cover a couple of things, and I'll just quickly touch on these. We're going to touch on why domestic hiring isn't enough, and that may be a bit of a provocative statement in and of itself, but we're going to take a look at some of the demographic realities that are facing U.S. healthcare employers generally, as well as just some overall market conditions. We're gonna talk a little bit about how global talent pipelines support the continuity of care, the differences between different models or different approaches to international recruiting. Obviously, when you're making strategic decisions, particularly around workforce, which is the largest, contributes the largest amount to the cost of delivering healthcare, financial implications are important to consider. So we're going to touch on that. And then we're going to also introduce and touch on some new ideas that we're bringing forward on how to further leverage an international workforce in the delivery of quality care. So quick overview of some of the things that we're going to touch on in our time together today. Next slide, please. Just a little bit further by way of introduction, Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, we are proud to be part of the Medical Solutions organization. Medical Solutions may be very familiar to some of you that are on the call here today. And together with Medical Solutions, we are excited that we can engage with healthcare providers across the country and have meaningful discussions around providing the broadest possible toolkit of workforce solutions, with today's focus being primarily on the international strategies and international options. Together with Medical Solutions, we have national reach and international reach. From the Worldwide HealthStaff perspective, we've been doing this specific work in the healthcare space for more than 25 years. It's the only space that we work in. So we have developed considerable domain expertise as this market has continued to evolve and grow over the years. Thousands of nurses successfully placed, just to put a little finer point on that. In recent times, post-pandemic times, we are successfully placing somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 internationally educated registered nurses with our clients across the country. That doesn't include some allied health professionals as well. And then, as we'll elaborate in just a moment, we've really worked hard to respond to what we've heard from healthcare providers over these many years in how it is that they would best be able to benefit from international recruitment. And we'll talk about the turnkey supports and the turnkey package that we've put in place that spans all aspects of recruiting, immigration, relocation, arrival, and even through to post-arrival support. So that's just a little bit more about who we are. Next slide, please. Now, I think if we were sitting around a table and having a conversation, I think there'd probably be a consensus that as the pandemic is further in the rearview mirror, that some of the workforce issues, particularly as it relates to registered nurses, have improved somewhat from the challenges that were being faced 2 and 3 years ago. That's obviously a positive development, but I think it's important that we just revisit, exactly the condition of the workforce that we're dealing with today. I think an accurate statement is to say that as we consider where we're at in relation to particularly nurse staffing and nurse shortage, is that that issue itself is a fundamentally structural issue. It's not situational in that we're better today than we were yesterday, therefore we're fine. We're dealing with a long-term, ingrained structural issue that is driven by multiple factors that are include obviously demographics. Those demographics then get translated to the workforce. That impacts things such as retirements. Demographics informs us of what we can expect in years to come when we consider what the US birth rate has been over the last 15 to 20 years. So I think it's important to note that when we're considering the issue of workforce shortage and solutions, that we have this understanding that we are dealing with a long-term structural challenge that by all indications and by all data is likely to be more challenging in the years ahead than it has been even to this point in time. So some of the areas I think that just to touch on as it relates to nursing, I think for many health systems across the country that we speak with, vacancy rates have come down from the mid to high 20s, but in some systems, vacancies remain as high as 15%. In other systems, they are at 10% or just slightly below 10%. It's very, very rare to see vacancy rates in any health system that are sort of in the 5-6% range. That's seen very, very seldom. I think a significant factor to be mindful of is the number of registered nurses that are now fully in that what would be called the retirement age zone. The number is very, very significant, 900,000. 900,000 here in the next couple of years. To put that number into some context, the US is currently producing about 190, 200,000 new nursing graduates a year that actually pass the NCLEX exam. When we consider that a number of those new graduates who do pass NCLEX have no intention of ever working at the bedside, so we're probably looking at somewhere between 180 to 190,000 new graduates a year. And if we put that number up against the anticipated number of retirements in the next 3 years, we can very quickly conclude that that math doesn't add, and it's going to contribute to the challenges that we have. Likewise, as employers in recent years have added increasing numbers of new graduates to their workforce, which obviously is an important part of an overall strategy. Employers consistently report that the new grads they're onboarding require significant additional supports in the form of residency programs and other similar programs that it can extend anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 6 months before these new grads are fully able to work independently in a safe and productive manner. We keep hearing about how there's applicants to nursing schools that aren't being accepted because of nursing school faculty shortages and capacity limits. And those are certainly real factors. There are nursing school faculty issues. In fact, we've had conversations with some educational institutions inquiring about the opportunity to recruit faculty, nursing faculty from abroad, right? And capacity limits that has to do with clinical placements. That's the reality today. Just a real quick comment. I think in this particular aspect, while we face faculty shortages today, and that's been an ongoing issue, this is not new news. This has been a reality for probably the better part of the last decade. I think in the very near future, we're going to be not dealing with a surplus of applicants. We're going to be dealing with a deficit of applicants, as we're now at the very front edge of US college age, so high school graduates, college and university age individuals has started to decline. First time in as long as I've looked back, and that predates World War I, where we've seen this phenomenon, demographic phenomenon in society in America. Colleges and universities around the country, small colleges, universities are closing. It's not hard to find these reports in the media. And I think going forward, we're going to hear more and more about the challenges that colleges and universities have in filling their existing programs. New grads, important part of the workforce, but it's also well established that the turnover rate is high in the first 2 years. And I know there's many efforts and initiatives underway to address that reality. And that's also a very important consideration. But it just speaks again to the fact that simply relying upon new graduates as part of a comprehensive strategy is insufficient as well. And then another issue that is well known, nothing new really, is the additional challenges encountered by rural healthcare providers in attracting the talent that they need. Perhaps some other time there can be a conversation around some of the new government policy and funding initiatives and the impact that's going to have on rural healthcare. But for the purposes of today's discussion, I think it's widely accepted that rural healthcare facilities do have additional challenges in attracting the talent that they need. Next slide, please. So when employers are confronted in their workforce strategy and their planning strategy and trying to manage day to day in what may sometimes appear to be a chronically short environment, right? Really, what are the solutions that employers have currently? What are the levers to pull? Obviously, partnering with local schools is one. And again, this ties in closely to the overall approach to hiring additional new graduates. Very important, needs to continue. Another lever that employers have pulled and continue to pull, obviously, is travel staff, contingent labor of some form. Post-pandemic, many healthcare providers have implemented some form of an internal resource pool or some form of an internal program designed to mitigate the utilization of outside contingent labor. It's interesting to note that as the market has evolved, considerably, particularly rather on the domestic side, and the market rates for contingent or travel staff have come down very dramatically, that many healthcare providers now find themselves that they have developed internal programs, internal resource pools that are actually costing them more than the current market rates for contingent labor. So just interesting to see how the market continues to evolve. And then thirdly, lever that U.S. employers can pull is that of international recruitment. And before we dive into any of the details around international recruitment, I want just like to call out the reality that when you consider all of the opportunities that you have to address your staffing needs, consider all of them. Recruiting for direct hire, the travel staff, partnering with schools, additional new graduates, social, digital, all of these strategies. When you put that up against international really is the only strategy that allows healthcare providers to add to the overall supply of their workforce, right? New graduates are going to be distributed, but on a good day, those new graduates at best are replacing those nurses that have left the organization. So that leaves much of legacy or traditional healthcare recruitment is really an exercise of, if I'm hospital A and Drew is hospital B, I'm trying to hire five of Drew's nurses faster than he's hiring 6 of mine. And one week I'm ahead, the next week Drew's ahead. At the end of a quarter, the end of the year, really not much has changed. But when you add an international candidate to your workforce, you are that is a net addition. That nurse hasn't been taken away from someone else and created an additional opening at their facility. So one of the important concepts that we always try to convey is that for many or most healthcare organizations, I always say they are really not facing a recruitment challenge. They're facing a supply and demand challenge. And that statement is simply to recognize that if you took, in Minnesota, as an example, you took all of the open hospital positions in Minnesota and you lined up all the qualified applicants interested in filling one of those positions in Minnesota, you would find a disparity where the number of open positions is greater than the number of available qualified applicants. So I think starting to maybe have a bit of a mind view shift of thinking about this in the context of supply and demand versus in the context of traditional recruiting, I think also is an important perspective to have when formulating an overall strategy. Next slide, please. International recruitment is an important part of a medium to longer term strategy. International recruitment is not capable of responding to your immediate staffing needs. But, a thought that I always like to share when we talk about timeline and how long does it take is just to ask you to reflect upon, where you're currently at in terms of your staffing priorities. How does that measure up, or how does that compare to what your staffing priorities were, let's say, 2 years ago? And with the information that you have at hand today, what do you think that your staffing requirements or challenges may be 2 years from now? I think to have a broader time horizon perspective really helps sharpen the focus on how international recruitment can contribute as part of your overall strategy. Immediate benefits, I think, that you would expect to achieve through the implementation of a strategic international program would be an additional predictable, steady supply of experienced registered nurses, and we'll amplify and talk about that word experienced more in just a moment here. In our direct hire model of international recruitment, we're talking about permanent placements. We're not talking about an international application to contingent labor or contract labor. We're talking about a strategy where you can add directly to your core staff. We'll touch on some of those benefits here in just a moment. Direct hiring obviously provides stronger retention and lowers onboarding and vacancy-related costs, which can be very significant in a very short period of time. Lots of literature, scholarly literature that has been produced that talks about the implications of having core staff versus contingent staff and what is the ideal mix, and getting to the optimum level of core staff. That those staff are going to integrate more successfully, and it also has a direct impact on the overall organizational culture and your pursuit of accomplishing your mission. Ultimately, hiring international candidates on a direct hire basis contributes to higher continuity. And we know that care continuity results in higher patient satisfaction scores and higher levels of patient safety. Next slide, please. So I've referenced in the previous slide, the approach, the direct hire approach. And I want to just amplify that thought a little bit by drawing out some of the most basic comparisons. If you are currently engaged in an international program, or you're thinking about international for the first time, or maybe you've had some exposure in the past, certainly there's a variety of vendors that you can partner with that offer these services. But in essence, when you take all the vendors, there's basically two models that are being offered. They may be presented slightly differently, but fundamentally, there's two basic models that can be used when working with candidates from outside the country. One is direct hire. The other is contract staffing, sometimes also referred to as temp to perm. And the sort of the key differences between the two models are laid out here. And not only are the models different, the outcomes that they produce are very different. I've touched on some of those, and so I'm not going to read this entire slide other than to reinforce the documented benefits in the form of just data and survey responses, as well as scholarly literature on the advantages of having an optimum number of core staff versus greater reliance on contingent or contract labor that just doesn't have the same attachment to the organization. It comes at a much higher cost. It comes with a decreased degree of continuity. So just a quick contrast and compare here between the two models. One point that's not listed here that I will also call out just briefly is from an applicant's perspective, and your ability to attract the best possible applicants from around the world, is that the direct hire opportunity has become in recent years the very, very strong preference of applicants around the world. When we get new inquiries these days, many times the very first question an applicant will ask is this a direct hire or is this a contract opportunity? And the purpose of that question and the reason they're asking is because they are very clearly looking for that direct hire opportunity. Next slide, please. In my opening comments, I referenced the fact that in response to feedback from clients over many years, clients are looking for a comprehensive service package when it comes to international recruiting. They're not looking to work with a recruiting firm, with an outside, immigration law firm, with a relocation firm, etc. So Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, our clients benefit by the comprehensive service program we've developed that includes all aspects of the initial client onboarding process, familiarizing you and your teams with the tenets of international recruitment overall, discussing different recruitment strategies, ways in which interviews can actually be planned and executed successfully. Obviously, the whole recruitment process itself. And from recruitment, we move in a very seamless way through to managing the immigration process. We have an in-house legal team of very experienced immigration attorneys, supported by paralegals and other support staff who are laser focused and very experienced and specialized, not only in healthcare recruitment, but specifically in healthcare immigration related to those occupational groups that we find ourselves working in most frequently, that being nursing and allied health. Once, as the immigration process plays itself through to completion, ultimately that candidate is going to relocate, and there's a whole workflow around helping them to prepare for that relocation, actually having that relocation take place, ensuring that the necessary resources are in place upon their arrival, temporary housing, permanent housing, transportation, a whole bunch of family supports that are important. Clinical preparation for transition to U.S. practice is part of that process with us as well, all the way through to post-arrival support. All of that is done seamlessly. Our clients have virtually one point of contact throughout the process. They will have a point of contact in the client onboarding and recruitment phases. And then once we move through to immigration, you'll have a point of contact that will essentially be the individual in our team that will keep you fully apprised of the progress and status of your candidates in the form of monthly reports, Power BI reports coming soon, on-site, regularly scheduled on-site meetings for business reviews and business planning. So these are the fundamental steps, and in our model, all part and parcel of our all-inclusive package. All right, next slide, please. So just some quick comments on what does success look like, right, for you when you are onboarding new hires. So retention is very near to the top of all healthcare providers' priorities these days, and it's been proven to really move the needle, and I think contributes to some of the lower vacancy rates that we're seeing, is just this focus on retention. In the direct hire international model, the retention rates that clients report are consistently higher than their retention rates for domestic applicants. And I think in large part, it's due to the fact that in the direct hire model, we are in a position where we are presenting your particular opportunity to prospective applicants before we ever present them to you for consideration. So as part of the onboarding process, we're going to gather information, obviously, about your organization, the positions that you're looking to fill. We're going to capture some information about your culture. We're going to capture information around the communities that your facilities are located in. And all of that information is shared with candidates up front, again, before they're even presented to you for interview. In this way, candidates are, at least to a degree, already self-selecting your facility and your organization as one where they would be very interested in making a commitment to becoming a part of that organization and a part of your community. We work, so I think just to wrap up that thought, from a retention perspective, you would anticipate that incorporating international recruitment as part of your strategy is also going to help drive your retention rates. I was on site at one of our larger clients last week in the Washington, D.C. area. With that particular client, over 3 years, we had placed just about, I think the number was 316 or 317 candidates that were on site, and they had been placed there over 3 years, and their retention rate was at 97, just over 97% after 3 years. That's a pretty extraordinary result, but the point remains, international recruitment is going to help drive and improve your overall retention rates. We work with candidates very closely, and we work with our clients very closely to ensure that candidates are very well prepared for transition to U.S. Practice. Angela, if we just go back a slide for a sec, that the candidates are well prepared for the transition to U.S. practice, and we have a number of tools that we utilize and share in that regard, and also have processes where we work closely with our clients so that they have input into what some of those preparations would be, so that when the applicant does arrive, their onboarding and their orientation can move forward as effectively and timely as possible. And of course, again, just back to this reality of the benefits of direct hire staff versus a greater reliance on contract or contingent labor, just the degree of collaboration with core staff and shared values over time that you would expect to see are also outcomes that you would expect as part of your successful international recruitment strategy. Next slide, please. Again, benefits that you would expect to gain by incorporating international as part of your strategy. And I'm very careful to always say as a part of. At no point would we ever recommend that employers rely entirely on international recruitment for their staffing strategy, but certainly as a component part, I think it's a very valuable tool, and I think the outcomes that our clients continue to achieve and benefits that you would expect to gain for yourself as well is predictable costs, right? By establishing a pipeline, a recruitment pipeline over time, you can have a clear handle and a clear understanding of what your costs are related to those applicants. And that pipeline over time, it is very predictable. So you can now see what candidates will be arriving 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and you will then start to use that information to also inform some of your domestic recruitment activities and tactics to ensure you have a fully coordinated plan in place. So international recruitment helps establish predictable costs, right? You're not subject to unexpected vacancies that are then filled last minute with sort of the most expensive option. You're putting a process in place that helps mitigate the number of times that those circumstances are going to occur. Burnout is a huge issue in the workforce. No need to spend a lot of time there. Optimum number of core staff helps reduce burnout. They're clearly documented. Stronger patient care through clinical continuity. We've touched on that. Also, well-established, well-documented outcome of having optimum core staff. Retention has improved, but turnover does remain stubborn, and turnover is expensive. So to the degree that international helps support overall improving retention rates, the ability to minimize the costs associated to turnover is very, very significant. the cost of having one position turnover is several times more than the cost of recruiting and onboarding an international nurse. And then lastly, it almost goes without saying, but I think it's worth just mentioning that international recruitment very strongly supports any initiatives or commitment that healthcare facilities may have to diversity within their workforce and expanding their cultural capacity and cultural competence to better help support the diversity in patient populations that continues to increase. The acceptance of remote work and virtual work in our post-pandemic world means that most international candidate interviews are now done virtually, which literally, not figuratively, but literally does open up the entire world. So where we have employers interviewing, let's even say 100 nurses as part of their recruitment objective, you would expect to be interviewing nurses very readily from possibly as many as 12 or 15 different countries in doing that. So international can strongly support your commitment to diversity and to growing the cultural competence of your organization overall. Next slide, please. So I want to spend a moment just here to kind of tie together a couple of my previous comments. And some of you may be familiar with the term or the phrase that's become increasingly popular, and that is the experience complexity gap. The experience complexity gap is increasingly a very real reality that chief nursing officers and healthcare organizations are facing. And what this phenomenon describes, or what this title describes, is the phenomenon of where experienced and tenured nurses are retiring or leaving the nursing occupation. And as they do so, they are being increasingly replaced by, if not new graduates, but certainly what we would call novice nurses, those that are in the very early stages of their career. And this phenomenon is now playing itself out in such a way that hospitals may, on a spreadsheet, be seeing reports that say, well, this week 2 nurses left, but we hired 2 new nurses, and the spreadsheet would seem to indicate kind of a net zero impact, when in fact, you may have had 45 or 50 years of nursing experience leaving your organization, being replaced by maybe 3 or 5 years of experience. So experience gap. And the complexity gap, is simply a recognition of the reality that the overall acuity of patients in acute care facilities today continues to go up. The acuity index is increasing. Patients are sicker. Hospitals, in terms of length of stay, are under extreme pressure to do more with less to impact that length of stay. So employers find themselves in a circumstance where there's an outflow of net experience at the same time that the complexity and the acuity of patients is increasing. If you want to really get some deeper information, there was some really strong research done on this topic a few years ago by Dr. Peter Buurhaus. He's one of the most recognized, I think, experts in nursing workforce planning. And in his research, Dr. Buurhaus concluded that for the years 2020 to 2030, so that 10-year period that we're right in the middle of right now, that the US healthcare system would be losing, on average, 2 million person years of experience annually by virtue of this phenomenon of tenured nurses being replaced by novice nurses. So we're well into that 10-year period, but we still have 5 years left to go. So based on that research, this phenomenon of experience complexity gap is only going to continue to increase and become more challenging. The reason I devote a few minutes of focused time, particularly to this topic, is because the international candidate is a very clear opportunity to address this issue head on. And I say that because when we look at the international candidate pool, which, by the way, is as strong and as deep as it has ever been in the 25 plus years that I've been doing this work, the international candidate pool, very strong, very deep. But in addition to being numerically strong, that candidate pool is going to bring on average 5 to 10 years of clinical experience to your organization. This pool of international candidates is skilled in acute, critical, and critical care settings, high volume settings. Many times we're now recruiting candidates that are currently working in locations other than their home countries. They've already moved from their home country, which is usually a developing country, to a more developed country where there are more modern healthcare organizations and systems. So these are candidates that are coming very well prepared. They require relatively minimal onboarding compared to the types of residency programs that are in place for domestic new grads. And along with the 5 to 10 years of experience, perhaps the international experience that they have in more than one country, it brings a level of not only experience, but maturity that helps support unit stability. They can contribute actively to staff mentoring and ultimately ensure that you're able to provide the best possible levels of care. Next slide, please. I'll just speak to this very quickly. As important as the contributions are that international candidates can make to your facility and benefit your patients and your patients' families, it's important to recognize also that when you onboard an international nurse, you've also played a significant part in changing their life. We use the phrase American dream very loosely, but for the international healthcare candidate, the American dream is alive and well, and America represents the ultimate accomplishment of their personal and professional goals. And as an employer, you can have a very significant part in that experience for them. These experienced nurses, we're able through our partnerships with our clients to ensure that they are placed into stable opportunities that are aligned with their career objectives. Again, as the employer, you're gaining access to a reliable supply of loyal, ready-to-work professionals. The long-term alignment of your goals and their goals ultimately is going to equal better patient care, stronger engagement, higher retention. And for the candidate, it's not just a job change. For them, it's actually a life transformation. So just got a couple more slides to talk about some new innovations that we are partnering with clients on. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the whole area of virtual health is high on the list of chief nursing officers and nursing executives, hospital executives. And this whole area of virtual, I think, is really still being defined. Its application is very different in different organizations. But feedback that we've received from clients across the country is that one of the key areas that they've already implemented some form of virtual care is in the area of virtual patient sitting or virtual patient monitoring. And the feedback that we've received is that as employers have tried to implement and scale and grow these programs, they're experiencing some of the same staffing challenges that they have just generally across the organization. In the virtual sitting realm, these are positions that are generally filled by individuals that have sort of nurse aide level qualifications, some exposure to healthcare, some very basic training, but they're certainly unlicensed individuals. And we've been working with our clients, and the technology is available, and we've ensured to have the infrastructure in place where we can now actually help support you further in leveraging the international workforce from abroad. And so we're very excited to be launching our first international virtual sitting client, where we will have experienced healthcare providers that will be providing virtual sitting or virtual monitoring services from abroad, directly connected to a nurse on the floor, and having that much larger pool of candidates to fill these positions in a reliable and consistent way is something that will strongly support our clients being able to maintain, grow, and scale their virtual sitting programs over time. Next slide, please. So as we, just to dive into the virtual sitting offering that we've developed a little bit deeper, we're organized, and we have the ability to either support an existing program by bringing supplemental staff to pick up a portion of the staffing needs that you have, or we can work with you to stand up a new program where that sitting might take place entirely abroad, or we can work on any sort of combination of either supplementing your program or staffing your program entirely. This work is being done 24/7. I was just in the Philippines a few weeks ago meeting with our team as they were just completing the latest ISO certification and just getting final sign off on all of the HIPAA related requirements and compliance. So very, very, very confident in the ability to deliver. By having the ability to expand virtual sitting programs, that ultimately relieves some pressure on existing nursing staff. And our virtual sitting program that we've developed has been developed to be scalable across multiple sites, multiple units, multiple facilities. We can go to the next slide, please. I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on this. I think this is kind of known information, what non-clinical tasks eat up your clinician's time. If virtual is an area of interest for your organization, we would certainly welcome a further conversation with our chief nursing officer and other clinical team members to talk about perhaps what your existing program is like, what your program goals may be, and how you may be able to leverage both additional domestic and international resources through the Medical Solutions Worldwide HealthStaff collaboration. And then last slide, if we can just advance one more time, we'll just to kind of summarize some of the thoughts that I've shared with you this afternoon. Global staffing, international direct hire staffing, is one piece of what we believe is a comprehensive, successful overall staffing strategy. International direct hire creates a stable foundation, pipelines that are predictable over time. The virtual sitting offering helps to support. It doesn't replace any of the core clinical or clinicians that you currently have, but it allows them to optimize their time to work at the top of their license to the greatest extent possible. Again, through the Worldwide HealthStaff Medical Solutions Partnership, we have the ability to connect you with the broadest range of staffing models to provide you with the greatest degree of flexibility and control. These staffing models and these staffing options can be laid out in what we call strategic layering, so that the overall plan is structured in such a way with a strong focus on reducing burnout and improving continuity. And then, given the years of experience that we have in this space, we are confident that we can be a good partner to you. It is our commitment to partner with our clients. We do not want to just be seen as another vendor. We're very proud of the fact that we have numerous clients with whom we've been working for more than 20 years, some of which are actually in Minnesota. So as we work with our clients and explore how international can contribute to your workplace, we do so with a long-term partnership view, way beyond just how many nurses you might be wanting to recruit in the first instance. So with that, I'll say thank you for your time and attention, and certainly would be happy to respond to any questions or comments that may have come in, or that you may have based on our discussion here this afternoon.
That's terrific. Thanks, Ron. Feel free to use the Q&A or the chat feature to our attendees for any questions that you may have. Just one that I see so far, Ron, is can you give a little bit of expectation around timing? How do you get started? The timing, what does the process look like for some organization that's looking to move forward with something like this?
Sure. So obviously a significant factor that impacts the overall timing of the process is how long does it take to get a visa application through, the U.S. immigration system. Just in the time available, I'll simply say that processing time varies. And as we look back over the last 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever that time horizon is, that timeline varies. Historically, in the recent past, we've seen 18 to 24 months as being the time, the elapsed time from a time that an application is filed to the time that a visa is issued. But whether the processing time is 18 months or 24 months or 12 months or some other number of months, I think for the organization that's looking at how international may fit into their strategy, the most important consideration and the way to get nurses to the US most quickly is to start, right? The system essentially works on a first in, first out basis. Applications that are received on Monday, right, in theory are processed ahead of those that are received on Tuesday. So simply, thinking through partnering with the right partner to develop a strategy and then implementing that strategy. Even if the processing times are 20 months today, there's nothing to say that the processing times can't be 12 months or maybe even 24 months over the course of the time that it's going to take for the applicant to arrive. The fundamental thing here, Drew, to remember is we're dealing with this structural issue, right? And when you have needs today, obviously a solution today is better than a solution tomorrow. But if organizations aren't planning ahead, and by planning ahead, I mean more than the next quarter, right? Planning ahead for what's 2, 3, 4 years out and trying to address that, the challenges are never going to change, right? So the most important thing to get to success in international recruitment is just to get started with the right partner, and to do so in a thoughtful, strategic way.
Terrific. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so I think we will start to wrap things up. And to all of our registrants here today, thank you so much for your time and attention. We will be sharing back out the slide deck that you saw here this afternoon, as well as contact information for our presenters, Ron and Angela. So thank you both for your time today and your insights. And hopefully this will help our Minnesota hospital base fight that issue of vacancies in our hospitals and supplement our workforce. So with that said, I'll sign off. Thanks everybody for joining today.
Thank you.